Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. I take it you're very well after yesterday.
I am. I hope you are too. It's a good weekend for both of our clubs. Yeah, that's how you do away days. That was absolutely perfect. It really was. Brilliant performance, brilliant game, and just all of the usual stuff was there, like long trip up to Manchester, rain in Manchester, all the things you kind of expect when you go up there, but there was not the expectation of the kind of awkward results that often come at Old Trafford. This was just dominant from start to finish. The attitude was perfect, and that scoreline flattered Man United. That could have been absolute. That could have been a 7 or 8 niller. That could have really terrific day for Tottenham.
Yeah, very much a Tottenham masterclass at Old Trafford. Brennan Johnson scoring after 3 minutes, Dejan Kulusevski just after half-time, and then Dominic Solanke about 15 minutes from the end. And Spurs were absolutely sensational yesterday, and unfortunately, I don't think they're getting the praise they really deserve, because in the media, as always, when Manchester United lose, it's all about them, whether Ten Hag's gone to lose his job. The culture's all wrong at Manchester United. That always gets brought up when the loss. But yeah, United were bad yesterday. Were really insipid display, but as bad as United were, Spurs incredible, and that was from the very first minute. And like you said, that could have been a lot more than 3-0 as well. Spurs could have had maybe 6, potentially 7 in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always think in these circumstances, what they don't often take into account, and look, it's Man U. They are probably arguably they are one of the biggest clubs in the world. They get all the attention. There's all the focus is on them, and rather than what a team has done to them. I think Spurs made them look poor as well. The press was, everyone's heard me going on and on about how I love it when Spurs press. That's when they're at their very best. They impress, if you will. And they just were so aggressive in the way they penned United in, not even in their own half, just around their own box. And United just kept handing them the ball because they're just panicking. They didn't know what to do with it. Solanke leading the line is just brilliant at that, and he sets the tone, and everyone else chases behind him and follows him. And you had two pacey players, and Johnson and Werner either side just kept closing down the fullbacks. Maddison and Kulusevski were right behind them doing exactly the same. Bentancur is like just everywhere in the midfield, and United just couldn't get out, and that was naturally causing them to make mistakes. It was causing them to panic. Their confidence was dropping. It was all interlinked, and it's like you say, it's so easy, I think, just to say, "Oh, United were rubbish." And it's like, no, that they weren't great. Of course they weren't, but Spurs made them that awful as well. But what I actually did like, which was a change in the narrative that it normally is after these kind of games. So we had a red card 42 minutes in, which obviously we're going to discuss. But actually, in the press conference afterwards, the press pack, the Manchester press pack that are always there and around Manchester United, didn't even bother asking Ange Postecoglou about the red card because there was no point. It wasn't a key moment. It just wasn't. It's one of those where, you could kind of claim this could have happened, that could have happened. But Spurs were absolutely pummeling United at that point. It wasn't like United could have had 12 players. It wouldn't have made any difference to the way that Spurs were. I mean, I looked at some of the stats in that first half. Actually, up to that 42nd minute, Spurs had 60% of the possession, 28 touches in the United box, and 12 shots at goal. That was before Fernandes even went off. And yeah, I just loved watching them. This was, for everything that Postecoglou promised, this was that kind of performance. The patterns of play, the movement, defensively brilliant, but also the interlinking between the likes of Kulusevski and Maddison and Johnson and Solanke and Werner, who we're going to talk about. Werner, we know, had 3 big moments that he made a mess of, but actually a lot of his interplay before that was excellent. Udogie, Porro, Kulusevski, we're going to talk about, had 9 key passes. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's more than the same as the entire United amount of key passes between their entire team put together. Brilliant performance, and it was just one of those you kind of feel as a privilege to be there to watch and cover.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much the Tottenham way of playing. I think this is what we've been waiting for quite a long time. We've seen it in spells early this season, but not for over the course of the 90 minutes. And in the past two Premier League games, Spurs have been, right on the ball, and it looks like it's a sign of things to come. And unfortunately, I think the international break, might just be coming at the wrong time for Spurs when they're playing so well. But I mean, started so well yesterday, and Brennan Johnson gets the credit as well for making it 4 goals in 4 successive games. But Mickey van der Ven, with that run, read Marcus Rashford's heavy touch really well, got on that. But once he was on the ball, there was just no stopping him. And, everyone's praised him for the run, which was fantastic because he just cut through about 4 or 5 Manchester United players with ease. The cutback, incredible. Just put the ball on the plate for him, and so easy for Johnson. No idea where, I think it was Dallow, the left back, was.
Yeah, completely.
Johnson, I mean, he had so much time and space, but what a fantastic move, and exactly what Ange wants. Someone just cutting the ball back to the back person. There's Brennan Johnson putting it into the back of the net.
Yeah, Van der Ven's like a freight train when he gets going, isn't he? It's just like, I mean, it's fast, of course it is, but it's power as well. It's not even, I wouldn't say it's like incredible skill. It's like he's just jinking in between players and then dancing around them. He is just bang. And they almost parted for him as well. I think that's definitely, if you're going to look at bad United play, that was the way they kind of parted to allow him to go through. And like you say, the drilling it across was just perfect. It's quite funny because he's probably watched the attackers go through that drill 1,000 times or more on the training pitches, and just like, oh, yeah, I could do a bit of that. And I mean, obviously, with the Sonny, the assist for Sonny that he kind of did against Everton as well, it's another one of those long runs and knowing exactly what to do at the end of it. Did you see Brennan Johnson's face as the ball's coming across?
Yeah, just eyes lit up, wasn't it?
He's grinning. He's grinning before he's even like. But also, that's a showing of his confidence. That's a display of that he knew he's going to put that in the net. There's no. It's such on a plate for him, and yeah, it was a lovely moment. I loved seeing the grin on his face, and just shows how far we've come and what a difference 12 days or so makes for everyone. 4 wins in a row. 11 goals in 12 days as well from Spurs. Couple of clean sheets in there as well. Brennan Johnson scored in 4 consecutive games. Dominic Solanke scored in 3 consecutive games. It's just, it's not rocket science. It's just a little bit of confidence. That's all it is. And Postecoglou, he keeps going on about this. Performances aren't that different in his mind. It's just putting the ball in the net, and that's just making the difference. And yeah, so to do that so early in the game, it set the tone. It absolutely just, Old Trafford went silent. They just didn't know how to handle that, and all you could hear with the noisy travelling Spurs fans in the corner just next to us. And yeah, we just next to the press box over the barrier, there was kind of a little collection of like former United players. You had Wayne Rooney, John O'Shea was there. In front of them, you had, I think it was Brennan Johnson's family actually, because you could see David Johnson, his dad was there. And you just could see them getting all like really happy, and just like Wayne Rooney and John O'Shea just absolutely sitting there completely quiet, like, oh, they kind of bring out the old United legends, don't they, to dissect things like that. But yeah, brilliant start.
Well, did you see on the TV cameras, literally, this was a couple of minutes after the goal, camera pan to David Johnson, who just sat there, just beaming smile on his face. Like, yeah, he absolutely loved it. And I mean, Brendan's come in for an awful lot of criticism this season, but he's shutting those critics right up now with his performances and those goals, and it was just relentless from there on. Spurs just never stopped, and I think Postecoglou alluded to that in his post-match press conference, whereas at times this season where they've done some decent attacking play and maybe it's not come off and heads might have dropped, Spurs just kept going and kept going. I mean, Maddison and Kulusevski just influencing things in the final word. Some of the interchange was incredible. I mean, there was one of the moments where Brennan Johnson hit the post. I thought Kulusevski was going to shoot from there.
Yeah,
because he had so much space, about 20 yards out. Instead, played it to Johnson. Really unlucky with Nepet what hit the post. I think there's more good play with Doggy going close as well. I think Maddison had an effort at Anana I mean, there was not much pace on that. It was pretty much
Mm.
easy. But again, there was another one where Spurs worked it really, really well. And Brennan Johnson this time was the one putting the ball across the face of the goal for Timo Werner, who was coming in at the back post. Sometimes we've not really seen that from Timo, whereas Johnson always attacks the back post. Werner sometimes doesn't, but this time he was there. But Mazraoui on hand, really good clearance, because otherwise then Werner's doubling the lead.
Yeah. I mean, you can see, we've spoken about this before, the work that they've done with Brennan Johnson at getting to the back post. It's just like all 4 of his goals have been running into that channel, into the box, whether it's finishing off a move that's come across the 6-yard box, or whether it's taking a pass into his stride and shooting. And it's just something they've worked on. And this is, you know, you kind of feel like you're repeating yourself or repeating what Postecoglou said, but he just keeps saying it. Brennan Johnson is someone that just spends hours on the training ground trying to improve himself. That's all he does. And this is the ridiculous thing when people go over the top in criticism, or obviously it turns into abuse at times as well, is that you just got to take into account that young players are going to have moments where they're not as good. They're going to work on, the best ones work on improving. And that's exactly what Brendan Johnson's doing. And I hope now this little period kind of sticks in the mind. The next time he goes through a little iffy patch, that people think like, oh no, but we know he's got the ability. We've seen that. We've seen him score those goals. We've seen him get into those great positions. I think Brendan Johnson yesterday, I think that was his best Spurs performance. I think it was overall, because, you know, scored the first goal. I know there was a deflection, but obviously the second goal was his run and pass into the middle as well. But I was also really closely watching, because he was down in the second half. He was right in kind of front of the press box down that channel, and the defensive work he was doing was brilliant. He just kept tracking back, helping Porro out with who would that have been? It was Rashford to begin with, then Garnacho. I think they swapped sides at one point. Yeah, just he was involved in everything. And what we've just been calling for Brendan Johnson to do, and it is a confidence thing, going at his man. He just kept going over and over again at Dalot, and just, yeah, they had no idea what to do with him. Yeah, definitely for me, I think he's had some very good games, but for me, that was like a culmination of all of it. And to do it on the big stage, to do it in a place where, you know, the top players really excel. And yeah, it's a fantastic moment for him. And I love that. I didn't realize that his dad had a big grin like he did above. That's lovely. And it's what it's all about. That's what football's all about, is destroying these silly narratives that people construct. And yeah, Brendan Johnson's doing that very nicely.
Dominic Solanke as well. I mean, he was coming in for criticism after 2.5 games now.
Yes.
3 goals, 3 successive games. He's a proper striker, Solanke. Yeah. I mean, we're watching the Karabakh game Thursday night. The work rate, the pressing, incredible. Always in the right positions. And that was clear to see when he scored. You know, Spurs have a really, really good striker on the hands. 3 goals already. He can score quite a lot in this team.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're going to blow our own trumpets here. You know, we've said it for ages. We said it like last season, that how good, how perfect a fit he would be, and lo and behold, thankfully they went for him. All this talk of other strikers that fans felt, and I get it. There's a lot of kind of strikers out there being mentioned that were very good strikers, but there's always this thing when people say back the manager, that also includes backing them and the players they want. And Postecoglou had an absolute hankering for Dominic Solanke this summer. He really, really wanted Solanke. And you can see why, because he fits the system like a glove. He was born to be a Postecoglou striker. And the scary thing, I think, for opposition kind of defenses is that he's still kind of saying he's not fully fit yet. He's not there. He's not at his peak kind of sharpness and fitness. Yet he is running from the first minute till they haul him off the pitch or the final whistle. And his work for the second goal, you know, there's Romero, I think, boots the ball up in the air, uses his strength to kind of get a bit of space, and then just powers a header forward for Johnson to run onto. And there were so many moments like that. He actually had, other than his goal, which was a lovely little poacher's moment, he had a big chance towards the end as well, when Onana just got a foot to his shot as he kind of ran into the box. And yeah, I think I've said it before and I'll keep saying it, he's going to score, for me, injury aside, as long as he steer clear of injuries, I think he'll get more than the 21 goals he got for Bournemouth last season, because I just think there's so many chances are going to be created for him. And I wouldn't even say there's loads of chances yet being created for him. He's kind of sniffing out his own kind of opportunities at the moment. And I think the more that the players around him get used to his runs and his style of play, because he's being very selfless at the moment and really working hard for the team, as I think he'll always do. But I think they're going to respond in kind. One thing I noticed with him, I don't know if you noticed this in celebrations, but also after the game as well, he's become very popular very quickly. There's a lot of players that have taken to, like Romero and Porro have really taken to him as well. And obviously Johnson's got a great relationship with him. Maddison knew him already. Decky was raving about him after the game. Do you think it's down to this kind of unselfish aspect to his play, that he works for these other players and they respect that?
Oh yeah, I think that's what you want from your teammates, isn't it? Giving 150% week in, week out, and making life difficult for the opponents, and that's exactly what he's doing. And I think also it's also down to what Ange always says about bringing the right characters in. So he's just settled in straight away. What's he been at the club now? Just over a month, 6 weeks. Yeah, quite clearly made an impact on the rest of the team, and we've seen how hard he works on the pitch, and that's exactly what he'll do on the training pitch at Hotspur Way as well. And teammates will have cottoned on to that, and yeah, he's quite clearly made a big impression on everyone at Spurs, and I think he will do for the rest of the Premier League this season, because there's definitely goals in him, and I agree with you, he probably will be scoring more than he did at Bournemouth last year. And I mean, that was an incredible total that he got at Bournemouth. They outscored Salah, Son for an inferior team as well, a team that perhaps isn't going to create as many chances as someone like Spurs will. And just on those chances, he probably had the same amount as Werner yesterday, maybe two good chances. That's probably about it, and it will come. He's only going to improve under Ange Postecoglou when playing with these quality players. So yeah, I think that money's looking a pretty shrewd investment at the moment.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, did you see Postecoglou's little sarcastic comment about? It's very good. He said, I think it was asked about. I can't remember what the exact question was now. Oh, it was the about the final third having turned the corner, in terms of, he would always say that the front third for Spurs was where there was the most room for growth. And so he was asked, can you see now like a corner being turned with that, and that it was starting to become what you want it to be? And he said, yeah, definitely. I mean, it helps that obviously Dom's overcome his crisis of confidence for 180 minutes. It's just that it does sum it up. It's just crazy, the lack of time people now give players. And I think a lot of it comes down to maybe Solanke wasn't the striker of choice for some people, so they get instantly less time to impress. And we spoke about it. He wasn't match sharp. He wasn't fit. He'd had an injury in pre-season, hadn't had a full pre-season, had an injury in his first game at Spurs, obviously, then missed a number of weeks with that as well. And now you're seeing what he brings to the team. And the only kind of sad thing in a way, although we did see him doing some running on the grass ahead of the open training on Thursday, is that he hasn't got Richarlison around, because I think you've got to be careful, Solanke, that he's not overplayed and like run into the ground, because he is the kind of guy that you think will just keep running until his body gives up. He needs Richarlison as that kind of player to swap in with him, whether it's late in games, whether it's for like every other match or something. Because that's my little one fear at the moment with Spurs, is that they're just picking up these little injuries to various players that's going to make it difficult for the squad to be rotated enough, and then that can come back to bite them.
Yeah, just moving back to one of the major incidents in the first half, and that was Bruno Fernandes's red card shortly before the break. I think when you're looking at it full speed and on the replays, wasn't a nice challenge at all on James Maddison. Certainly caught him up high with the studs, but on closer inspection, he does slip. So I can understand where some are coming from. It does look kind of harsh, but he does catch him quite high. So, I mean, Tottenham players immediately, they pretty much thought it was a red, and you could tell from their reaction.
You
But
see what
yeah,
Brennan Johnson was doing?
I read it in your talking points. You gonna
Yeah.
explain then?
Yeah, he's one of these guys that just I think sometimes he just likes to go into the middle of the situation and just enjoy the situation, like kind of enjoy it. We've seen it before. Do you remember when Postecoglou went mad on the sidelines? I think it was when Alejo Velez got injured against Bournemouth, and he was
Yes.
absolutely going because Bournemouth bench thought that he was like making it up and it wasn't kind of a real thing. And you just kind of saw Brendan Johnson in the middle of it all, just kind of laughing and looking at everyone going crazy. And it was a kind of a little moment like that. He went up to Fernandes and just starts pointing his head and he's just going, stupid, stupid, stupid. And like looking at Fernandes the whole time. And Fernandes like, you can see him going, what do you say? I think it was a bit harsh. I think. I'm not putting that so much on the slip because I kind of feel like he slips but then lunges out after. I think the slip puts him in the position where he then feels he has to lunge out, but I wouldn't say he's slipped into the challenge, if you see what I mean. But I think when you kind of, see it kind of watched back, I don't think his studs actually catch him. I think it's like the side of his foot catches Maddison. And he claims that Maddison told him afterwards that he didn't really catch him enough for it to be a red. But obviously, Maddison did go down and make make a bit of a meal of it in the moment. But then VAR very quickly just agreed with the referee's decision. I think it's one of those where, had it been on the pitch, given a yellow, I don't think people probably would have argued too much. But also, I don't think there was enough there for VAR to say, no, you're completely wrong. That's a clear and obvious error. It's not a red card. So it's one of those. But like I said, didn't affect the game in the slightest for me. If anything, United probably looked slightly better going forward in the second half, just because I don't think the way they play was going to be impacted. It sounds weird to say, but it wasn't going to be impacted too much by losing a man because they're a team that kind of counters quickly. So they were always going to do that, even when trying to sit back with 10 men. But yeah, Spurs were just going to steamroller over them anyway. It was just a case of getting that second goal, and obviously that came early after the break.
Yeah, I think United did have the moments. There was that one when Garnacho hit the post in the first half, and I thought
Vicario made a good save, didn't he, from Xerxes?
He did, and I thought they had a decent period in the second half for probably about 10 minutes or so. I mean, Spurs of the 90 minutes were by far the better team. They were fantastic, but there was probably that 10 minutes or so when they were 2-0 up and United had a couple of moves in the final third, and you're thinking, oh, here we go, if they concede now.
And the crowd got behind them, didn't they? At Old Trafford, you're still going to have moments like that.
Yeah, definitely. But as you said, it was just a case of getting that second goal, because we've seen time and time again at Spurs when they've dominated games, had chances, not taking them, and been duly punished in the process. But this wasn't the case, and Dejan Kulusevski fully deserved his goal on the day. What a performance he delivered in the middle of the park. I don't think there's many better players than him in the Premier League at the moment on current form. I think he's that good at the moment. And I mean, I would have given him a 10 in the player ratings. I just thought he was.
You're dissing my player ratings?
I'm not. I thought they were pretty much bang on, but I mean, very rare we hand out a 10 in the ratings, but he was just dominant. He was the best player on the pitch for me by far. And he's just incredible, really, when we've seen him on the right wing. And he didn't really maybe have the best of seasons last year. Well, certainly not to the levels when he first came to the club. I think was it like 5 goals, 8 assists in maybe 19, 20 games or something like that. He just looks a totally different player in the middle, in his preferred position. And he's only gone to get better. And it does look a tad offensive, the trio of Maddison, Bentancur and Kulusevski. But I think that is by far Spurs' best midfield three at the moment. Really, really impressed with Kulusevski of late.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on the player ratings. Sometimes, because we've spoken about this before. When I do my player ratings, I don't look to see what people say afterwards because it's pointless. It's utterly pointless because everyone has a a different view. I can look under my player ratings if I on the odd occasion I do, and you've got someone saying you've marked this player too high, and underneath you said the same player you marked him too low, and it's like, okay, that's fine. That's what they are. But occasionally I do go back and look at little aspects of performance, and there's things you're like, oh, I didn't notice that from the press box. Sometimes there's things you miss, or you're looking down your writing, you miss little extra moments. And with Decky, yeah, I think he probably could have been bumped up to a 10 because there was I said earlier, 9 key passes. You kind of forget, like, he put Werner away both times. He's, like you say, put Johnson away for hitting the post, and his goal was lovely. It's a lovely little deft flick past Onana. It's very, very clever. And reaction, the improvisation to react to the ball suddenly not coming along the ground like he thought it was going to be. I think you've made a great shout there. I think not a lot of people will say it, but I think he has to be up there with the most informed players in the Premier League right now. He's absolutely flying. He was very good after the game. He was asked about his position on the pitch now in the deeper role, and he just said, "This is my position. This is it." And I grew a lot because now I can defend. Maybe before I didn't defend as much, and that was why I didn't play in the midfield. But now I'm growing as a player, and then I can play to my strengths. I'm best in the middle. I can score goals. I can find good passes. And then I play with Maddison, who's unbelievable with the ball. We have Bentancur, who, when he plays like this, is an unbelievable player. So it looks offensive on paper, but right now it's working really good. And I think that's exactly what you said about it. It is an offensive trio, not in that, they upset people. Well, they do, but it's like I think they make up for that with the ground they cover. They're such a hard-working trio, and they're all comfortable with operating in their own half as well. So while on paper it looks like 2 number 10s with probably a number 8 more than number 6 in Bentancur, I actually think that because of the ridiculous amounts of kilometers or miles, wherever you want to measure it, they cover, I think that they suddenly become a very hard-working trio. And I love the little kind of relationships within it. So you've got Kulusevski and Bentancur that have known each other since, their days in Turin together. They've been together a long, long time. So they know each other's games inside out. But then also we're seeing this relationship between Maddison and Kulusevski blossom now. We saw it in pre-season a lot. Because this is the thing. They've been separated on the pitch for much of the last year. Different flanks, not really kind of interfering with each other's games other than a cross to the back post or something. Now suddenly they're a lot closer. And we saw in pre-season that Kulusevski back heel on Sunday, where Maddison ran on and it hit Onana's shoulder. He tried to do the same little chip he did against Brentford, didn't he? It was like a little kind of dinked effort. That back heel we saw in pre-season about 2 or 3 times. Yeah. Kulusevski just kept playing that back heel 1-2. They're so clever as players, the two of them, and they are going to be absolutely devastating together. And you feel like for someone like Pat Matasar, because he was a shoo-in for the midfield, and Basuma, they're now finding themselves out on the fringes and having to kind of rely. They'll get their game time, of course they will. But that trio, I just love the way. I thought Bentancur, after being at Old Trafford last year and being superb last year, he was excellent again, wasn't he?
Oh, fantastic. Past 2 games in the Premier League, yeah. Coming up against Manuel Ugarte, Uruguay international colleague, who was starting his first game for Manchester United in the Premier League. He showed Ugarte how to run a midfield. Fantastic. Just set the pace, the intensity of the game. Always an option on the ball for his defence, to get play moving, twisting and turning. That's the Bentancur of old. I mean,
he's so calm, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I said it last week. He's Tottenham's best midfielder, I think, on his day when he is in that kind of form. And
better than Kulusevski?
There's 2 very good ones there at the moment now, which is only a good thing for Spurs. But, yeah, I think last year was always a case of just getting him back on the pitch, getting those minutes into his leg after that ACL injury and then the ankle one as well. And I think you said it was always going to be this season where he's going to be hitting his stride once again. And it does look like he's getting back to those previous levels. And that's only a good thing for Spurs, because I can remember prior to his injury, the amount of key performances he made those chipping in with the late goals as well at times. Bournemouth away, I think it was Sporting CP at home. It was absolutely incredible for Spurs, and he was a big miss last year just because of what he can bring to the team. And unfortunately, there's that FA charge hanging over his head, which means the likelihood of him missing games, potentially maybe up to 12 games. And then he's also in this situation where I think he's on 3 yellow cards from his first 5 games. So if he carries on the way he is in terms of picking up those yellows, he's going to miss another game at some point. And last year, Basuma, Sarr, and Maddison were fantastic in that midfield three in the first 10, 11 games, and then injuries, suspension, AFCON participation came about, and that meant there was an awful lot of chopping and changing in the remainder of the season. Those 3 players didn't quite hit the heights in the second half of the year, but in terms of this midfield three Andrew's got at the moment, incredible.
Yeah. No, they're a joy to watch as well. They've got so many different aspects to their game. And, this was another thing that we said kind of in pre-season, that maybe this year was going to be slightly different to last, in that last year they kind of came out the traps flying, but then they didn't have the squad to kind of maintain that. And you saw that with the injuries they picked up. Whereas this time it felt like a few of their key players were coming back from international tournaments later in the summer. They were going to take more time to get up to speed. Getting a new signing like Solanke in late, he was going to take time to get up to speed. And it kind of almost felt like they might stutter and stumble a little bit to begin with, but then would hit their stride. And, and here we are in late September, and their stride has well and truly been hit. It's lovely to watch. And, it's funny, isn't it? It's how you can be so set on what you think is the best midfield, and then things completely change. And then that's, only one of those midfield we're talking about from last season was playing, and that's absolutely right now in terms of form is their best midfield by a mile. And it's proved that, they played it against Arsenal. They played it at Old Trafford away. It's not a lightweight midfield you have to worry about. They're coming up against other, strong midfields in tough places to go, and they're dealing with it fine, because a lot of it is recycling the ball so quickly as well, and winning it back. And Postecoglou was speaking yesterday about how Maddison and Kulusevski had this kind of special role, as well as the fullbacks, in tying up the United fullbacks far up the pitch, keeping them away as an attacking option, and that really limited United. And you can see it, and there's so many levels to it and layers to what kind of, I think people maybe had this misconception that the Postecoglou way is quite a simple way. It's just like, get the ball, attack. It's not. There's so many different layers to it. And Brennan Johnson was speaking after the game about how the game plan they were given, the players going to, all they had to do was execute it, and they executed it perfectly, and that's why they played like they did. Just wanted to say, Kulusevski, did you see his slightly different celebration?
Yeah, shouting into the camera. Was it for his daughter?
Yeah, he did a heart and an L with his fingers. His little girl's called Leonie, I think. And that was a celebration for her. He actually said a really interesting thing in his post-match interview for the club, that when I spoke earlier about him saying that he feels more responsibility in his defending and things like that now, he actually places that to becoming a dad. He says that because he's now got his extra responsibilities in life, he's kind of looking now at others, and it's not just about him. And he feels like he's bringing that into his football as well, that he's very aware of what he has to do for other people and the rest of the team, not just thinking about his own kind of, I'm going to run towards goal and score kind of thing. I thought that was really interesting.
A 24-year-old as well. Clearly got his head screwed on. Just in terms of the midfield, one last thing before we move on to what happened in the second half. Lee Carsley, England interim boss, was there at Old Trafford yesterday. He names his squad on Thursday for the Nations League fixtures. I think it'll have been impressed.
Mikey Moore, I think I said.
Maybe. Solanke. Solanke might be a shout. But I think James Maddison, I imagine he will have certainly caught Carsley's eye. Has he done enough then to be in the England squad, maybe? Or is this one just a bit too soon?
What, Maddison?
Yeah.
Oh, I think he's done enough. I think he's been superb over the last month or so. And to be fair, as he said himself, he's played a lot deeper this season. I think there's games earlier in the season where maybe we didn't give him enough credit for what he was doing further down the pitch. It's the classic with England. There's so many people competing in those positions. I don't think he can do any more than he's done. But I kind of forgot about Solanke in terms of England as well. I think in my brain, I just don't want anyone to go on international duty because I'm so scared of getting injured. I would imagine are we to presume that Ivan Toney maybe will go out of the picture now because of his move to Saudi Pro League?
You'd probably think so, but then again, Jordan Henderson was in, wasn't he, under Southgate a couple of times. I don't think Tony was in the last one, but then again, he wasn't playing for Brentford, was he, in the opening weeks of the season? So you'd imagine Kane, Watkins, and maybe one more.
Yeah, I think the way Solanke's playing, I think you'd be mad not to have him as an option within your squad. Yeah, I think the two of them. Yeah, no, I was obviously joking about Mikey Moore, but that was a lovely little cameo at the end as well. That curling shot at the end, I was like, oh, what a way to wrap it up that would have been. One for the future. But yeah, it's one of those where, for them personally, I think I'd love to see Maddison and Solanke in the squad. But selfishly, I'd love to see them get a nice 2-week rest.
Yeah. Before we move on to plenty more to discuss in the Tottenham win at Manchester United, Spurs are playing again Thursday night away at Ferencváros in the Europa League. Ali, you'll be there, and I imagine you'll be using NordVPN.
Nice segue. I thought, oh, you're not doing the Nord bit, and then I thought we're talking about UEFA already in Europa League. Very good, very smooth. Yes, yes, I am heading to Budapest for the game, and yes, I will undoubtedly be using NordVPN in order to. In any little tiny moments of downtime I might get to probably late in the evenings to watch some shows from back home, because I can make my device think it's back in the UK, and also maybe if they don't give us any replay monitors, which weren't great at Old Trafford either, but if they don't have replay monitors in the stadium Budapest, then I can log in and get the game on my phone or laptop, and by making it think that it's back home in the UK. And yeah, NordVPN has been a companion for me on many trips, whether it's through work, whether it's for holidays as well. And yeah, it's I'm sure, I've said this so many times now, and because I believe in it, and I'm sure people could probably recite it with me at this point, because it is the case. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world. That means no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. You can use it to book things from abroad. So you might want to book a flight, let's say, from the destination country, rather than booking it as if you're in the UK. You just set your device to thinking it's in the destination country. Perhaps you could find, I don't know, cheaper hotel bookings by doing it from the source, from the actual destination itself. And also security-wise, it helps lock up, or certainly go at some degree to locking up your devices and keeping out those nasty people on public Wi-Fis that try to get in. And on top of all of that, to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, you can go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest, and our special link will give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan you can get. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description box.
Let's talk about Timo Werner now. So you touched upon him earlier, saying you thought he played really, really well. Came into the team with Son not being available after that injury picked up in the Karabag game. For me, I thought Werner was good in the game. I thought he delivered a really good performance. But again, it's just going to be those 2 misses that overshadow the hard work he put in, because I thought his link-up play were really, really good at times, with Destiny dogging those in the final third. Would have had a goal to his name if Mazraoui wasn't at the back post for that Johnson cross. But yeah, then, as I said, everyone's just going to look at him in terms of his finishing again, because since he's been in the Premier League, when he was at Chelsea, that was always a stick he was beaten with, because he was missing chance after chance and really good ones at that. And it's hard to, see Werner as the player he was in the Bundesliga, because he was prolific there for Leipzig, and it's just not quite happened for him in the Premier League. But I think with certainly the first one, it was his pace that got him away from the marker to have that opportunity on goal. I can see what he's doing, trying to beat Onana at his near post. I think it's a good save from Onana. But again, I think if Son's in that position, you're probably more confident of Son taking that opportunity. But Son did miss a really good opportunity against Brentford when he was put through and tried to go around the keeper. Second one in the second half, it was just a weak effort, really. Just lacked any conviction in it. Comfortable for Onana, but at least he's getting into those positions. And maybe it is just the confidence thing. Maybe he needs that game time. A goal such as Brennan Johnson, who has now gone on a really good run of form in front of goal. But in terms of his performance, I thought it was really good. And that was clear to see in the move towards the end, where he again uses pace to get the better of his marker, check back, then beat him, but he just pulled the ball back. I think it was Solanke and Maddison who were there, and he was just behind them. But overall, for me, good showing from him.
Yeah, I think I understood. I know it caused a lot of consternation on social media, but I understood why he was brought in for Son. I got it, because it kept the shape of the team. It kept Decky in the midfield, where he kind of can do his best stuff. And I think you bring Kulusevski on the right wing, and it does very much alter the way Spurs would have played. And the game plan and the way they were set up was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And I think kind of we alluded to right at the start with Son and Johnson as the pacey kind of pressing players up front, constantly pinning back the fullbacks. It was always going to be a very important part of it. So did I say Son? I can't remember if I said Son now. I meant Werner if I did say Son. But yeah, it's one of those where I don't want to go overboard on saying how good he was, because the three moments were very important that he kind of made a mess of. And I do think, unfortunately, that knocks the overall performance down. But in the basic kind of foundation stuff of what you want a Postecoglou winger to do, and we said this before, he does it. He does. He looks to beat his man. I think he and Solanke had the most dribbles, 2 dribbles each. He would constantly go past his man, get to the byline. And like you say, he'd actually taken up a really good position for the low Johnson cross. Just unfortunately, it didn't quite reach him. But he also actually, just to put it in there as well, defended really well. He got back and tracked back and helped to doggy out a lot of times. But you can't get away from those misses because it's a player just kind of devoid of belief in himself in those moments. Like you say, at Leipzig, he was phenomenal. You would never doubt him going through. He would score so many goals using his pace and everything. And now I think it's almost like, I'm sure, Spurs do have a sports psychologist and everything, but you just need someone to get inside that head. You just need someone to get in there and just say, look at, we know you can do this. Look at yourself at Leipzig. Watch millions of videos of yourself in these moments. There is no reason why, you should make a great run and at the last minute just really hesitate and doubt yourself. Because I wonder, with the pace he can go at, and this is just me kind of as a, very, very, very low level kind of player, not even getting on the spectrum of footballers. But in my mind, I'm thinking, why don't you just round the keeper? Kind of Onana's rushed out and is kind of back on his haunches at the last minute as he's kind of trying to adjust his body. And you kind of think, if he just suddenly kept going to the left, he's around Onana, and then he can probably, have an open goal to aim at. But it's just that's what I think it is with decision making. There's an element of luck as well, because that shot easily could have gone, let's say, between Onana's legs and ended up in the goal, and everyone's talking about, oh, there you go, fantastic. But yeah, it's about the confidence. The second shot was so weak. It was like, oh, Kulusevski's put him through again. It just made no real kind of. There was no conviction in the shot at all. And then, it was really frustrating, the third moment, because he had done a brilliant job. He ran from his own half. It was a great run. And then it was 3 against 2, wasn't it? I think he had more Spurs players to aim for than United ones. And he just pulls it. I think Johnson was at the back as well.
Right.
And he just pulled it behind all of them in this kind of really awkward position. And it's difficult because you can see the frustration on their faces. And he just kind of slunk, like his head went down again. And it's like, he does. He just needs a moment. He needs, because he was good at Old Trafford last year as well. He played well in that game, set up Bentancur's goal, didn't he? He just needs, even if the ball goes in off his backside, exactly like you said, he just needs that Johnson moment of something that fires him. I wouldn't be shocked if he scores on Thursday night in Hungary. I wouldn't be shocked if he does, and just to kind of get him that little bit of kind of confidence back again. And yeah, I know people want to see Mikey more and they want to see him playing, but we do have to keep reminding ourselves, he's 17 years old. You've got to take it carefully with him. You could see at Old Trafford how putting Werner with his experience in that situation was the right move. I would have been it's not saying that it might have gone completely the other way and he might have absolutely been amazing, but I think it was better in a scenario like that to be able to bring Mikey Moore on at 3-0 up at the end of the game, just to kind of revel in a game that was already won. And we saw that lovely moment where he almost curled the ball into the net. Could well be that he might start on Thursday. It may be the case. But yeah, I think Werner's going to. He was. I saw a bit of social media. He was getting it after the game, which is a shame because I hope people saw more of the good stuff he did as well. And we know he's just got to get over this massive kind of hump, I suppose, or bump in the road that has been his confidence when he goes through on goal. And yeah, sometimes it's the simplest thing that fixes that.
Yeah, I think he does an awful lot of things right on the pitch,
Yeah.
but it is just that final ball, the final finish, what he's lacking at times. And you saw last season, that was his debut for Spurs at Old Trafford, performed really well. And you can see why Ange wanted to bring him back to the club in the summer because of what he did during his loan spell when he was fit. Yeah, the goals might have been missing, but the assists he racked up and the performances were good. So for me, I think you start him Thursday night and hopefully he gets that goal and then can become a key player for Spurs going forward. What I did like about yesterday's performance at Old Trafford was nothing was said about Son. Because usually when your key player is missing, that is like top of the list. But Spurs just made sure there was no talk about Son whatsoever because of the job they did on Manchester United. And in regards to Son, Ange was asked about him in his pre-match interview, just said he just wasn't right for today's game. And I wonder, do you leave him out of the Ferencváros and Brighton games just so he doesn't go on international duty?
That's a difficult one. Sonny takes such pride, doesn't he, in playing for his country and playing for Tottenham. I think it'll be difficult to kind of keep him away if he feels like he's in any shape to be able to play. Yeah, tough call that. But yeah, I think it was quite an important thing to win without Son, and that's not to there could have been certainly those moments where Werner went through if they were the same ones presented to Son, like you said, he could have scored those. So it's not saying the result was different because Son wasn't in the team, but I think it was quite important in terms of being able to show that they don't require their star players to still pull off amazing performances. And I feel like the key thing at a club, and Postecoglou has always made a big deal about this, and rightly so, is who steps up when a leader is out. And I felt Romero, we haven't even really mentioned him yet, I feel like as a leader, he stepped up superbly. You could see him marshalling the back line. You could see him you really kind of not restraint, because I'm not sure we can use restraint with Romero, but his timing was brilliant. Like there was a challenge on, was it Garnacho, I think, towards the end. He just steamed in at the perfect time to take the ball away. Everything he did was very kind of measured and thought out. And he just, like I said, took on the leadership mantle on the pitch from Sonia and was really, really good with it. They did two huddles before the game. One before the game, one before the second half, In the first half, you could see Romero speaking into the huddle. It was one of the players speaking to it. And when the second half started, you could see Vicario, as this fourth member of the leadership group, really passionately talking to the group. And it's quite interesting. They scored 2 to 3 minutes after each of those huddles. You can clearly see the leadership made an impact on the team. And that was a massive part of it as well. And like we said, Werner coming in and doing a lot of the dirty work that was needed to be done in that position as well. So yeah, I think while you never want to have a player of the quality of Son out of your squad, I think it was important for the rest of the players to know that they can win without him. It's similar how Son used to step up when Kane was out. You know, Spurs would win games without Kane, and it kind of proved to them it wasn't the be-all and end-all. They were not a one-player team. But yeah, it was... hopefully he's back soon. Of course, you know, we'd love him to have a good rest because I think he needs it. I think he's been overplayed at the start of the season because of the injuries to others. But yeah, we'll see. We'll probably learn more out in Budapest on Wednesday. The press conference will be.
Yeah, Spurs very much keen to avoid the repeat scenario of Son's injury because Destiny Doggy got a knock early on in that first half and looked like he potentially could have been coming off the pitch, but managed to play on until half time. Jed Spence at that point was ready to come on. He did come on in the second half, and really good to see Jed making an impact in the game because it's come back into Postecoglou's thinking this season in terms of the Premier League, maybe not got the minutes he would have liked. It might be minutes here and there. Played very well in the Carabao Cup away at Coventry in those 45 minutes after the break. But this was another really good showing and very much shows that he is part of Postecoglou's plans going forward.
Yeah, just very quickly, what did you think of a Doggy?
Yeah, really, really good, especially going forward
Best
as
of the
well.
season so far? For me, it was.
Probably. You could tell in those early few weeks he wasn't there in terms of his fitness because he'd not even played, had he? I don't think in pre-season because of the surgery back in April. So it was always just going to be a case of him, you know, just getting those minutes initially and then his form will come, and his form is coming right now. He's performing really well, and yeah, I think that was his best showing of the season by far.
Yeah, I thought he was superb. I know it was only 45 minutes, but I thought he was everywhere. It was like a rash over United. He just, you know, the run up the pitch, the combination with Werner and the run up the pitch that ended with Brennan Johnson hit the post was brilliant. And his little combos with Kulusevski, I think it was Kulusevski, yeah. I think both of them might have been when Doggy himself got into the box. He had one shot over, one deflected as well. And yeah, it's I'd love that performance from him. My only worry was that little injury scare he had, and he looked like he was. It was a funny little moment on the touchline because it looked like the coaching staff had told Spence to get ready to come on. He had actually was there with his shirt kind of ready to come on, and then Postecoglou seemed to turn around and almost as if say, "Well, what are you doing? Wait a minute. I think he's all right to continue." It was like a little bit of miscommunication between him and his staff. And yeah, Doggy said he was able to continue, but the worry for me slightly is that it was Postecoglou asked about it after the game, and he said it was his quad, and he had quad surgery, didn't he, in the summer?
Yeah.
That was the thing he was out with. I mean, it may well be I don't know if it's the same leg or anything like that, but it was still a little bit like, ugh. And of course, we're in this silly situation now where Jed Spence cannot come in the Europa League game and fill in for him. Which, yes, after that second half performance, it just continues to look like a stranger and stranger decision. It really does. I thought that was a huge performance for Jed Spence. I think improving on a big stage, what you could do. I know they're up against 10 men, but like I say, the Man U kind of breaking counter was going to happen regardless. So he still had a lot to deal with, but he also gave them so much to deal with. Went on a few of those little trademark kind of breaks that he does when he runs forward. And yeah, I really liked his performance. And Postecoglou was really happy with it afterwards as well. And again, it's building this trust now with his teammates, but also with his manager and the coaching staff that regardless of whatever's happened in the last couple of years, you can rely on me. I'm here, and I'm gonna. You can bring me on at Old Trafford at half time, and you can count on me to not let the level dip at all. And yeah, it's they've got 73 goalkeepers now in the Europa League squad, and you're just going to think if one of them could have gone out. Especially if you're going to use Vicario for the bulk of the Europa League games as well, and rightly so. When you look back at the Qarabag game, it was quite important that Vicario was there. But my goodness, I just wonder. He'll never admit it, Postecoglou. If I were to ask him, "Do you regret it at all?" Of course, he was never ever in a million years say yes, because he's not that kind of guy. But there must be a tiny part of Postecoglou that's like, I wish I'd put Jed in the squad. It'd be really helpful with the injuries we've got and everything, because he is going to end up having to play too many of his back four that he wants at the weekends in the Premier League games. Are going to have to play in Europe. And I think it would have been a massive help for Jed Spence as well to keep developing and keep continuing this terrific trajectory he's on. But yeah, big positives I felt from both left backs on the day. And I thought Porro was excellent as well on the other side.
Yeah, he was. Just on Spence, I mean, Ange can put Jed back in the Europa League squad come February if he wants, when you can make changes to it. But
if they're in the knockout stages, yes.
Yeah, providing they go through.
Yep.
But then again, if Spurs sign players in January, then you're in this situation where even more might have to get left out. So yeah, it's a tricky situation. I think just on Jed as well, it shows his place in Ange's thinking, because usually Ben Davies would be on the bench. Ben Davies would go to left back. Ben Davies wasn't in the squad. So it quite clearly shows like Dragason's fair choice. I think Davies is probably viewed more as the fourth centre back now.
And I also think Jed can cover both fullback spots, which helps him, I think.
Yeah, it does. Just on Porro, yeah. Another really, really positive showing from him. I mean, I don't think anyone put a foot wrong on the day. It's very hard to criticise anyone after a performance like that. And it was just nice to see Vicario have another solid game. And there was a moment in the second half, either it was a corner or a free kick, just came out, caught it. That's exactly what you want from him, especially when we've seen previously Spurs have struggled with those set pieces. You just want him to be commanding in the area, and he was.
Do you think him actually playing against Qarabag was quite important for him to kind of not get his confidence back, but just get him back into a rhythm?
Maybe. I'd have always gone strong anyway in the Europa League first game. I think we get to, name the 11 we'd choose. I had Vicario in goal, and I think those two saves in the second half, they've just done his confidence the world of good as well. They were fantastic ones.
And his handling was really good in that game, after maybe being slightly iffy in moments against Brentford.
Yeah, and I think if you do have a strong performance, you're always going to take that into the next game, and your confidence levels are going to grow. So yeah, maybe it was the right thing for Vicario to be in the net performing well. Yeah,
no, I like Vicario. Been lucky enough to kind of do quite a few interviews with him as well, and he's a fascinating guy. He's a very hard-working guy. He's always, it's everyone knows now, he kind of pretty much every day off, he'll still go into Hotspur Way and train and do work and stuff as well. He's dedicated to kind of improving himself. And yeah, I think he's another one that kind of falls into the camp of just unnecessarily criticised at times. Definitely, of course, he makes mistakes at times, as all goalkeepers do. That's what's going to happen if you're coming out to try and be dominant in your box. There's going to be times where a mess is made of it. But yeah, I thought he was a really big leader in that team yesterday, and played his part. The Xerxes save was really important. Close range kind of reaction stop was excellent. He actually made a good save from Rashford, but it was ruled offside anyway. And yeah, like you say, just claimed everything he needed to, and another clean sheet. Another clean sheet for them. I thought they defended set pieces really well as well. That's probably not going to be made too much of, and they scored a set piece goal as well at the other end.
Yeah, I was just going to move on to that because we've already spoken about Jed Spence making an impact off the bench. literally seconds before Solanke scored, triple sub from Ange. Bergvall, Mikey Moore, and Pat Matasar coming on. Bergvall whipping in a fantastic corner, Sarr getting his head onto it, and then Solanke finishing in the area. That's exactly what you want from your striker, just to be that fox in the box, the poacher, just to put the ball into the net. And really good to see in the celebrations, a number of players just went to Sarr as well to congratulate him for his role in the goal. And it was a lovely ball in from Lucas Bergvall as well.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sure Postecoglou is not going to get credit he deserves, but so when two of your subs immediately combine, it's like fair play. That's a terrific decision, kind of thing. We know Bergvall's got that quality in his delivery, and that was absolutely into the danger zone. And Sarr knows how to make an impact against United. We've seen him do that in the past as well. Yeah, Flick-on was perfect, and like you say, Solanke's poacher instinct to get in there and slide in and put the ball home. And yeah, and again, a set piece goal. We've spoken about Nick Montgomery, his involvement since coming in, both in defensive and attacking set pieces. So I'm sure he'll be delighted that they've conceded nothing at one end and they've scored from a set piece goal at the other end of the pitch as well. I love narrative bashing, destroying games, and we've had so many of those. I mean, with the set pieces, with Vicario as well to a degree, and Solanke and Brennan Johnson. Do you know who Spurs' top scorer is this season?
Brennan Johnson, then Dominic Solanke. I think Sonny's on 2.
That's it. It's
not bad.
It's like the two players have been criticised are the two top scorers for Tottenham this season. I mean, it's still early days, of course, but yeah, it's lovely to see.
Yeah. One thing that was a bit of a talking point after the game, a certain chant from the away end. Spurs have released a statement, basically started off with club is aware of abhorrent homophobic chanting from sections of the away support at Old Trafford today. Not exactly what you want to be talking about, is it, after such a dominating performance at Old Trafford?
Yeah, I mean, probably the key word is just unnecessary. It's just so unnecessary. The away fans were amazing at Old Trafford. Honestly, you're not sat too far away from them, and all you can hear is their noise, and then the support they were giving the team, and the lovely moments at the end when all the players went over to them, and Mikey Moore going over to them. But there's again, I'll just go back to the word unnecessary. Solanke's doing really well for Spurs, and unfortunately, this chant seemed to have appeared, which includes him, and it also includes Mikel Arteta. And it's just like I don't get it. I don't understand It's not a chant that Solanke will be proud to be associated with. It's not going to be something that's going to make him happy when he hears it. It almost feels like a chant that's mainly more of a kind of a reason to kind of just bring Arsenal and Arteta into it. And it's just like, can't we just? There's so many brilliant chants out there. Can we not have a chant that is purely about Dominic Solanke and just how well he's doing and all of that? It's like, yeah, it's a real shame. And like I say, I don't think it's something that Solanke will be proud to be associated with it at all. I don't even think that. I know that will be the case. Of course, he's not going to be one associated with that. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not a fan in any way of that sort of thing. It's almost like the kind of stuff like like silly kids would say in the playground kind of thing. It's like that's not a chant that people should, for me, that should be singing in unison, especially when the travelling fans have been so brilliant. And we'll see. There's other ones out there that obviously aren't great either. All clubs have them, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see kind of what happens, because there has been a change to the law as well, isn't there? And I think you can get arrested for that sort of stuff. The club said in their statement that they're going to be kind of helping United and identifying people as well. So it's like, there's just no need for it whatsoever. It's just not a good thing for anyone. And exactly like you say, it's such a shame that we kind of have to talk about a negative thing after such an amazing day for the club and their fans.
Yeah, Spurs did have a couple of openings towards the end of the game to add to those 3 goals. Lucas Bergvall in really good position for one of them. I think it was a 5-on-3 counter. For whatever reason, he opts to shoot from 25 yards out. Ball goes high and wide of the target. Safe to say, Ange let his feelings be known on the touchline.
Yes, he was going mad, which is a great sign in terms of, Spurs were 3-0 up and he was still wanting them to score more and more goals, which is, it was a good sign, and it kind of shows how relentless he wants the football to be. But yeah, poor Lucas Bergwall, I think he tried to compensate the second time. Like the first time he had that shot from far out when Mikey Moore was free on the left. Then I think he looked to try and find Mikey Moore and ignored the fact that there were two players completely unmarked on the right-hand side that could pass that to. And yeah, look, I know he's only 18, but we said it before with the Vicario moment he had against Leicester as well. It's like these players are going to be put into pressure situations and they're going to have to make the right decisions. And while, it was definitely a real kind of ear bashing he got from Postecoglou, he's going to remember next time. Of course he will. It's all part of his learning, and he'll know in certain situations when to make the right move and what to do with it. And I thought it was apart from that side, I thought it was another positive cameo from him. I thought he looked to be really progressive with the ball and take the game to United. And you'd think he'll start on Thursday, hopefully get a little bit more game time than he did last Thursday. And yeah, all part of his football education and the kind of high levels. And, he's played at Old Trafford. He's been part of a team that's beaten Man United. He's swung in a brilliant corner that's led to the third goal. So I'm sure his day overall was a very good one for him.
Yeah, I don't think he shoots in that situation if it's like 1-0 Spurs or it's 1-1.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those. We're 3-0 up. I want to score. I'll have a goal.
Yeah.
Nowhere near the target, though. Mikey Moore wasn't too far off with that curling effort. I mean, that would have just put the cherry on top of what was an incredible day. To everyone in the away end, all Spurs fans just want him to play and to score.
Yeah, I was people I was sat around in the press box were mostly like Manchester beat reporters. And when he did that, they were like, "Oh, that was great!" And they could see him scrabbling down the team sheets like Mikey Moore. They're like reading his name out, and I'm like, just to let you all know, he's 17 years old, and he's only turned 17 last month as well. He's like, and they're like, "Oh my goodness," kind of thing. It's like, yeah, no, he is going to be some talent, and we've seen him do that so many times to the academy, cutting in on the left-hand side and curling a shot in. He is, funnily enough, a lot of his game, you would imagine, is probably quite based on, or he's seen and watched Sonny. There's a lot of the cutting in from the left, but obviously Postecoglou has been using him on the right in the pre-season, which is not a position he's played too much. So yeah, I'd love to see him given a go on Thursday. I think it'd be a good tester for him out there and abroad in a different country. In front of, we'll see what the crowd's going to be like there as well. Whether he does or not, I don't know. But obviously, Sonny, you probably won't want to throw back in. Brennan Johnson, again, do you want to keep overplaying him? Could you get away with Moore and Werner after you've made the strong start at home? Maybe. But yeah, no, it's another terrific experience for Mikey Moore. And like I said, there was a lovely moment at the end where I don't know whether the senior players kind of pushed into the front or he just happened to be at the front anyway, but he was just in front of the crowd, the away fans. They were singing his name, and you could just see what a special moment it was for him. And that hopefully he'll have many, many, many more moments like that because he is so incredibly young.
It's going to be really interesting to see how Spurs actually line up on Thursday, because I think changes do need to happen. Some players, such as Brennan Johnson, probably is the right time to give him a rest, because even at Coventry in the Cup, when he was on the bench, he came on pretty early in that game because of Odebear's injury. Solanke, I mean, do you even start him again? I probably would, and then just maybe withdraw him after an hour. I know Ferencváros are probably one of the weaker opponents out of the 8 in the league phase for Spurs, but still, you're going away from home, totally different environment, atmosphere will be bouncing there. It's difficult, the European away games. We've seen it before when Spurs have gone away to...
we've seen it before many times.
Yeah, to teams that probably should be winning. and not so you can't take them lightly. But yeah, again, it's just going to be a balancing act for Ange.
Yeah, it's there are some some big kind of decisions for him to make. I think in those, you could probably play Solanke for an hour, then give Will Lancashire half an hour at the end. I think that's probably the way to do that one. I think midfield probably takes care of itself. It's probably
The same
Berlau,
three from
Madison,
Karabag.
Madison, Basuma and Sarr. Yeah. Back four. What do you do back four? Romero probably stays in.
Yeah, I think you'd give Van der Ven a rest this game, just because he's been overplayed. But then there's no.
I know. I can see your brain working that out as you're thinking about it.
Who'd you play at left back then?
I know. Where does Ben Davies play?
Can Archie Gray play as a left back? Keep Porro in. What's Fraser Forster like at left back? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one because we'd have to. I really wouldn't want to be putting a doggy in after he'd had that little kind of worry. I mean, obviously you could see how he is 4 days on and whether there's any pain at all. I don't think we've seen Archie Gray at left back. Did he play there for Leeds at all? I'm trying to think now.
He might have done.
He might have done early in the season. I feel like when I was remembering doing stuff about Jed when he was on loan, I feel like maybe Archie Gray did play a couple of times as a left back.
I'll have a look now.
Yeah, you can have a look while I'm kind of thinking about it. But yeah, the back four very much. Romero, I think, has to start. Obviously, there's no Dragishin because he's suspended. You would want to be able to rest Van der Ven, probably. I think Porro is the freshest, so you could start Porro again. I don't think that would be an issue because he had an entire night off, as did Romero on Thursday. Yeah, maybe that's what he does. I mean, Archie Gray is so versatile. We've seen him play at centre back. Maybe Archie Gray plays at centre back. Maybe that's what he does.
Yeah,
Archie Gray.
That's not a bad shout. He didn't play at left back for Leeds last season.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go then. Maybe Archie Gray at centre back with Romero, Porro on the right, Davies as a left back. That could be the way to go, and just try to keep the ball as far up the pitch as possible and not kind of expose them too much. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. Would you play Vicario in goal again, or do you give Forster a go?
I don't know, to be honest.
You're not going to use Forster at all. It kind of becomes even more just ridiculous that he's in the squad.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Vicario going again. I think it's just probably important racking up the points now. Just get them on board. You don't want to be chasing in the final few games. Just get into a good position and then maybe tweak things. Ferencváros did lose 2-1 to Anderlecht in their opener. Adama Traore scored for Ferencváros. Not that one, but
not that one. Yeah, we've heard enough about him. I believe.
Yeah, but it's going to be a tough game. Looking at the squad, there's actually not that many available players, is there now?
No, it's gone from looking quite a strong squad in most areas to suddenly you lose Odebeer and Son from the forward line, and suddenly your wingers options, you lose Richarlison as well. It's probably the midfields where it's at the strongest at the moment. He's got most of the options, but we knew going in that the defence was going to be a bit of an issue because of the lack of extra centre-back cover and obviously Jed Spence being left out. So it's in games like this that it's going to cause problems.
Does Alfie Dorrington maybe come into the thinking because Ange and Spurs are going to have to name a B list? I think you do it before every game. You've got to do it before midnight of the game. When Arsenal were in Champions League against Atalanta, they named 41 players on their B list. Spurs just went with the 4.
Why'd you name 41 players just before one game?
I have no idea. Just in case there's an injury crisis, I suppose.
That's a hell of a crisis.
a sickness bug, lasagna gate.
Maybe.
I think for Spurs, it probably just made sense naming 4 because only 2 of them went into the matchday squad
Yeah.
in the end, and Spurs didn't go with the full complement of 12.
What did you make of that? I know it's a tiny little thing, but what do you make of that? Like not having, let's say, Tyrese Hall on the bench.
At the end of the day, you can only make 5 changes, can't you, in the Europa League? So you don't need the full 12, but I think it's just nice for them to have that experience. That's what happened when Spurs were in the Europa League last time. The likes of Niall John on the bench, Jack Clark at times, Dane Scarlett, a few others. You just want them to have those opportunities.
Yeah, it's just experience. And I just think then they're less in awe of it when they are really kind of necessary, as it were. But hey, it's Postecoglou's decision. But in terms of Alfie Dorrington, he's getting more games. I think he played for the under-21s again at the weekend. I feel like just for some reason Postecoglou hasn't really utilised him enough. He's been on the bench, a few times, but yeah, I think it would seem strange not to have him in the B list unless they really are wary of kind of giving him too much football too soon after coming back from his hamstring injury. But with no Dragishin, and no Spence as well, it kind of I suppose it was like having no Romero in the last round. I suppose is one centre back suspended, but I I would
there
have
could be
Dorrington on the bench.
no defensive cover on the bench in terms of the seniors.
No, who was the defensive cover on the bench in Karabakh then? We should have known that before asking the question mid podcast. It's not mid. Don't worry, it's not mid podcast. This isn't going to be a 3-hour podcast. Trying to think now. Was it Van de Ven on the bench?
Porro was the only defensive
Porro
cover.
was the only, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I'd put Dorrington on there, but we shall see. We'll know on was it Wednesday? We'll know what B list players have been added. We'll know because we'll see them fly as well to Budapest.
Yeah, so a bit of an earlier kick-off time on Thursday, 5:45. So it'll be 6:45 your time in Budapest, and hopefully on the podcast next week we'll be talking about another 3 points in Europe, and the same goes in the Premier League, because tricky game, Brighton away at the Amex Sunday afternoon. Spurs haven't always had that much joy at the Amex. Last year, 4-2 defeat. We're trailing 4-0. Then Valise scored, didn't he, late on, and Ben Davis. Hopefully some more positive things to come for Spurs, because they're certainly moving in the right direction now after that fantastic 3-0 win at Manchester United. We'll leave that there for today's podcast. As ever, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.